And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by AT&T and Alpha Insurance. The Tide is off today, but John, we're still working and keeping you in the Alabama football mood.
Absolutely, Gary. And you might ask yourself, what did Alabama do with their downtime this week? Well, the Tide practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Nick Saban had his guys work some on LSU as well as future opponents, i.e. Mississippi State, i.e. Auburn. But Saban says bonus workouts aren't the only thing a bye week is good for.
You know, this is not just important for the players from a practice standpoint. It's important to, get treatment, psychologically recover a little bit, physically recover a little bit, get the proper rest, do the right things, get caught up in school a little bit.
I think it's going to be a good thing for us as a team just to be able to kind of look in the mirror and see what we did well over the first 8 games and see what we did poorly over the first 8 games and look to try to improve the best way we know how.
Personally, I want to go back and look at all the games that we've played and look at, my mental errors, where I messed up, what I can do to improve those little things and, try to fix it for this last little home stretch that we got.
What about some of the top performers from the first 8 games of the 2010 season for the Tide? Trent Richardson, close to 1,500 all-purpose yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 rushing, 3 receiving, and 1 on a kickoff return. Receiver Julio Jones has been tearing it up this season, 45 catches for close to 700 yards and 3 TDs. And look at Mark Barron's numbers on defense: 52 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. Todd Hoyer has a look back at Alabama's games 1 through 8.
The defending national champions and then ranked #1 Alabama football team opened the 2010 season at home against the San Jose State Spartans. The game was a mismatch from the start as the Tide piled up 591 yards of offense while allowing just 175 yards on defense en route to a 48-3 win before a sold-out crowd of 101,821 at the newly renovated Bryant-Denny Stadium.
I was really sort of pleased with the effort, the attitude, the intensity, the way our team was kind of ready to play and focused on what they needed to do to try to create an identity for themselves.
Next came the Nittany Lions of Penn State, who were back in Tuscaloosa for the first time since their 9-0 victory in 1990. However, this game would be different as Alabama's defense forced 4 turnovers, 3 of them coming inside the Tide's red zone. Trent Richardson, who totaled 190 yards on the night, became the first player to rush for over 100 yards versus a Penn State defense in 17 games in the 24-3 victory. Afterwards, Joe Paterno was so distraught with his team's performance that he stormed out of his post-game press conference only 2 minutes into it.
It's over. Alabama deserves to win it. They were a better football team today, better coach team today, and they deserve to win.
Can you give us an update on Hodges?
The Crimson Tide took their 2-0 record on the road for the first time to Durham, North Carolina to face off against former SEC head coach David Cutcliffe. Alabama welcomed back Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram, who missed the first 2 games because of knee surgery. Ingram rushed for 152 yards on only 9 carries and scored 2 touchdowns in helping his team post 28 first-quarter points. The Tide also produced over 600 yards of offense for the first time since 1989 in cruising to the 62-13 victory. Alabama stayed on the road the following week, opening up SEC play against the 10th-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks, led by quarterback Ryan Mallett. The Crimson Tide found itself trailing by 13 in the second half, but rallied to cut the lead to 3, setting the stage for Robert Lester's late-game heroics. His second interception of the game led to Mark Ingram's go-ahead score with just under 4 minutes to play. Mallett's third interception of the game, this one to Dre Kirkpatrick, sealed the 24-20 come-from-behind victory over the Hogs. The 7th-ranked Florida Gators made their return to Bryant-Denny Stadium for the first time since the 2005 season. This also was the highly anticipated rematch to last December's SEC championship game. Alabama scored the first 4 times they touched the ball, while the defense forced 4 turnovers that led to 3 TDs and held the Gators out of the end zone in defeating Florida 31-6. Next up for Alabama, they took their #1 ranking on the road to Columbia to face 19th-ranked South Carolina. Steve Spurrier had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and it showed. The Gamecocks scored the first time they touched the ball and led 21-9 at intermission. In fact, the Gamecocks never trailed in the game. On the other side of the ball, the defense was holding Alabama's offense as a team to only 36 total rushing yards and sacking Greg McElroy 7 times and upsetting the Tide 35-21, breaking Alabama's school record 29-game regular season win streak.
It's drinking the Kool-Aid, thinking that just because they say it on ESPN, it's so. Reading the newspapers all week, just because you beat Florida 31-6, people start talking about you being the best team in the country. We're not the best team in the country. We're not the best team in the country. We had the best team in the country last year, and we proved it. We proved it over 14 games. All right, and this team hadn't proved excuse my language. That's how I feel about it.
Now, despite the loss, Alabama was happy to be back at home the next week for homecoming against the Ole Miss Rebels. Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy was 17-25 for 219 yards and threw for 2 touchdowns, while running back Trent Richardson totaled 146 all-purpose yards in helping the Tide bounce back and pick up their 6th victory on the season by the final score of 23-10.
We have our intensity and focus and all of that put in together. We get great results. So, I mean, I just try to, push the guys to, be like that every play.
We kept on, we're trying to run the ball, we're trying to set them up. I mean, it's obvious it's going to happen. I mean, you can't, you got a backfield like with Mark and, with me and Eddie Lacy and Demetrius Gould, and you got an offensive line like we got. And, our offense try to be a more powerful game and try to hit folks in their mouth. I mean, it's always going to bust out one play.
With the Rebels behind them, the Crimson Tide turned their focus to the annual showdown with Tennessee. This rivalry began back in 1901, and this year's game had a new flavor to it, with first-year Tennessee head coach Derek Dooley, a Saban protege, facing off against his mentor. Now, despite their 2-4 record, Tennessee played hard in the first half and only trailed by 3 thanks to this 33-yard field goal by Michael Pilardi on the final play of the second quarter. However, at halftime, Saban told his team calmly to just turn up the heat, which the Tide did.
I just said that everything will be more fun, guys, if we play with more intensity. It'll be a lot easier. Everything will be more fun.
They scored touchdowns on 4 straight possessions, turning a once close game into a rout. Leading the way was junior receiver Julio Jones, who set a school record for receiving yards with 221 on 12 receptions.
It's all right. I feel all right, but, I mean, as long as the offensive line, I think they're more than anything. And Greg, without them, I couldn't do what I did tonight.
Alabama won the game 41-10, the most one-sided victory in the series since 1963. So the Tide now stands at 7-1 on the season, 4-1 in the SEC. Now, as far as that SEC championship is concerned, the Tide does control their own destiny, meaning if they do win out, they will be playing in Atlanta, possibly for a spot in the BCS National Championship game. Reporting for Crimson Tide Kickoff, Todd Hoyer, WVUA Sports.
Todd, thanks very much. Nice job. And don't go anywhere. We've still got a lot more to do. Crimson Tide Kickoff continues in just 2 minutes with our SEC Roundup and much more. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff for this Saturday morning. The big talk around the SEC and around the country this week, Gary, Auburn being ranked #1 in the BCS standings, and a lot of the credit why goes to Cam Newton.
Absolutely, the guy is incredible. And because of that, Auburn has launched a website promoting its Heisman Trophy candidate. Cam2Newton.com is what it's called. Earlier this week, Cameron Newton was asked about what he thought about having his own personal space on the web.
Checked it out. Got a chance to glance on it, but somehow or another I can't look at it for real on my phone. So, somebody took some thought into it. I felt kind of good because they did a better job than I could have did.
Meanwhile, Coach Gene Chizik has fielded quite a few questions, as expected this week, about being #1. It's the first time the Tigers have reached the mark since the BCS inception. Now, it's all about how they handle it.
The maturity of the young man, I think, definitely plays a part. But, I think it's challenging. But I think being mature and being able to handle them and stay very grounded is the key.
Auburn will play at Ole Miss at 5 o'clock later on today. Houston Nutt has a history of pulling monumental upsets, but can he do it against Auburn? The Rebels know what they're up against.
They're going to know who they're playing. Because their name's going to be across ESPN and your station and everybody else's station all week, every day. So they'll see that. They'll know that. But I'm more concerned about us. I'm more concerned about us eliminating mistakes, taking care of the ball. Everybody know who to block. Let's be better fundamental tacklers. Let's be better tacklers and play a full 60-minute game and get our kicking game right.
Well, you know, a few weeks ago, you wouldn't have given Georgia much of a chance against the Florida Gators. Now, the Dogs seem to have the upward momentum, while the Florida Gators seem to be spiraling out of control. Florida has lost their last 3 games, dating back to their October 2nd defeat in Bryant-Denny Stadium. The Gators are off this past week, and Coach Urban Meyer says he tweaked his offense quite a bit. However, the coach adds there's only so much tweaking you can do. A lot of it comes down to just simply playing better.
It's getting it done. You know, if the route's at 12 yards, it's at 12 yards. It's not 11 and a half. If it's that free safety blitzes through the B gap and the back has him, he blocks him. He doesn't go to the right and, you know, say my bad or something like that. And that's something we've been very, very good at around here. Very good at. And to me, that's efficiency of practice. And it's called competitive excellence, which is something that we're lacking right now for the first time since '05.
Well, as we pointed out, Georgia got off to a miserable start this season, but the Bulldogs, much to the credit of head coach Mark Richt, have turned it around. They've won their last 3 in commanding fashion and are still in contention to win the SEC East Division.
Most important thing for our players and coaches to focus on is their job. I mean, you know, however we've prepared in the last few weeks, we need to continue to prepare that way. And the mental state of mind has been very good. The emotions have been running high when we run out of that locker room to play the game, and so I'm expecting that to continue.
So no Alabama today, but still a good docket, an exciting day of SEC football. At 11:21 this morning, Tennessee at South Carolina. Then at 2:30 in the afternoon, Florida at Georgia. 5 o'clock tonight, Auburn at Ole Miss. 6 o'clock, Kentucky at Mississippi State, as is the same time that Vanderbilt and Arkansas will kick things off in Fayetteville.
Well, next on Crimson Tide Kickoff, it's a fascinating book that shows how Alabama football and World War II became intertwined.
It very much is. It's very fascinating. Stick around. We'll chat with the author as we take you back to a time when winning really was everything.